I got the email, ran upstairs, grabbed my wife, and I was like, okay, you open it and let's do it. The first time I had her open the letter, and she opened the email, and the minute she screamed, I was like, I knew it. And it was celebration after that. Took the rest of the day off work.
Yeah, I like that. It's a celebration. Welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. And we have a new successful Georgia bar applicant. Prince, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Jackson?
Good. You're my favorite student just because your name is Prince. I feel like we should put the symbol up there. But you've got to be feeling like,
I feel great. And I tell folks I'm the original. I'm not the symbol.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. You took the Georgia bar exam in February of 2021, and it was a crazy exam for lots of reasons. But I want to drop back in time and maybe have you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in a position to take the exam.
So for me, it was a 22-year journey. I graduated from law school in 1999. My older daughter was born about 2 weeks before my first year of law school, and my younger daughter was born 2 weeks after I graduated law school, and 2 weeks before I took the bar the first time. So needless to say, it wasn't successful that first time around in North Carolina. And then life interrupted. I had to work. So I didn't go back and take it. I started doing some contract work, and one thing led to another full-time position, and basically worked for the last 20 years until the kids were all grown. And now that they're out of, I have a daughter out of college, the other one in college, they're out of the house. I told my wife about 2 years ago, I was like, you know what, I think it's time to go back and finish what I started. So I had an opportunity to leave a position I was with and take some time off with a voluntary separation package. Spent about 6 months just relearning 1L year, took a big box bar review course, of course, and was not successful first time. Was not successful the second time with the same big box bar review course. And then I contacted you and started working through your program. And this time around, let's just say the COVID bar last October was not a friend of mine, but this time around, I think I was adjusted and ready, and it worked out.
That's great. I do want to talk about that fall of 2020 exam because the COVID exams were really crazy for lots of reasons. But I know for you, it was particularly troubling. You want to talk a little bit about what happened in that exam?
Yes. I'm not sure if you remember me calling you panicked on the first day. What happened, the essay portion, and for me, I still type with 2 fingers. I'm old school that way. I'm not the fastest. Even the first time I took it with the big bar course, I wrote it in my exam and it didn't work out. Typing was always an issue, and I was concerned about my timing. Even during practice, I was never able to finish. So needless to say, with that first time around, with that minimized screen, with the question, you're used to having a packet I can write my notes in and everything else. But this COVID exam, having everything on the screen and trying to minimize the question and write the answer, I literally on one question was writing an answer for the wrong question because I had the screen all messed up. And I ended up not finishing a whole question, not even getting to do a first, put in even an answer or anything on it. So needless to say, it was troubling, and it was tough getting used to that whole format compared to what it had been the 2 previous times.
Yeah, and you weren't alone in that. A lot of people struggled with how to put together this online test and work with it and manage it. And we did talk after that first night, and it was pretty clear that given what had happened, there was no way you were going to be successful on that particular exam. I thought what was interesting about that call, however, was that you, while you were deeply frustrated by what had happened, you weren't going to give up. I didn't get a sense at that point that you had said, you know what, this is just not in the cards for me. Can you talk a little bit about what your feeling was in those first few days after that test?
Just devastation, because I knew it wasn't a good look. I knew not finishing. And really, quite frankly, even the first 2 times I took it, I didn't quite finish either a subsection of a question, but this one, an entire thing, it was just a gut-wrenching feeling like there's no way. When I took myself down this road, my plan was always to continue to take it, even if I had to take it 20 times to get my license, because I've been working in a quasi-legal role, doing the job of an attorney and not getting the title or the recognition for it. So career-wise, where I am, it just felt stuck. I'm in my late 40s now, and I have about 20 more years of work, and I was just determined to go down the path that I started. Even though that was frustrating last year, I wasn't going to give up. And I tried to come up with a strategy this time that would work, even with the constraints of the one small screen on the laptop to do the essay.
Yeah. And so you started back in almost immediately to start preparing for the February 2021 exam, which
Yeah.
in some ways was a godsend because if you'd waited for results, obviously you were going to have a very short window between the results and the actual exam. So you got back in right away. And how many hours would you say you were studying on a weekly basis between that October test and the February exam? Can you put a number on it?
So I actually, even after the October test, I didn't get started till about, before the results came out, till about late November or so. This is before we got the results in December. But, I worked full time, 40 to 60-hour weeks or so. So my schedule was literally working from about 8 a.m. to about 6 p.m. ish or so, and then studying from about 7 p.m. to about 1 or 2 in the morning, and then rinse, repeat, do it again 5 days a week. And then on the weekend, I can put 6 to 8 hours in and getting things. And it's just my matter of just reading stuff and more practice than anything else. Because by that point, I had read the substantive law, I think each one multiple times. So it was more practice than anything else.
And let's talk about the reading because you used photo reading to prepare for the exam. Can you talk a little bit about what photo reading was like for you?
It was, I can't say I 100% got it. I did it, but it was a different way of looking at reading, first of all. But I tried the program. I would photo read the substantive sections, but I also had miniaturized outlines that I would also supplement and just do regular reading with as well. But yeah, photo reading, it surprised me how much stuff was still up here, for lack of a better word. It may not be a clear snapshot or whatever, but I felt like I had a lot of the substantive law in my head in preparation for the test.
And how many times would you say you photo read a particular subject outline? Was it more than once?
So each one I would do once and then do photo reading of my outline as well. Now, one thing I did try to do was mind mapping. I was never great at it, so I stuck to the usual lineal outline for me.
Okay, so you made your own notes and you worked from there. And then you were in our basic coaching program. So you were using our model and sample answers, but we weren't working individually with you on your writing. What was that process like of evaluating your work and comparing it and seeing how you were doing on your essays?
I, like most people before this course, was used to the big box issue spot in IRAC format. Let's just say that the first couple of times I took the exam, a multiple choice was in the 130s. So I wasn't feeling too bad about that section. I knew my issue was the writing. So the FLA style, where it's more fact intensive and less focused on memorizing the law, I literally, in certain scenarios, just created a sentence to say what the rule is and just kept hitting them with the facts. And I just love that writing style. It was a completely different way approach, and it worked for me. It was great. It was just a different way because you get frustrated. You read a long fact pattern. Okay, what's this? Try to figure out how many, you get a minimum of 2 or 3 issues out of it and everything else. Just focusing on the facts made it a lot simpler to get to the issue, in my view. So that, just a change in mentality for writing was a big focus for me. And once I started doing it and looking at my samples and I'm seeing that I'm getting it, I'm hitting the targets and the points and looking at your sample answers. So I felt great.
Yeah, that's a really helpful way of explaining it because you're really starting to write more directly and doing less of the outside marginal stuff. And of course, in Georgia, where you've got 45-minute questions or 45 minutes to write an answer, but the questions are often very long.
Very long fact pattern. And even during the COVID test, they didn't, with a reduced 30-minute time frame, you still had the same ridiculous fact pattern. So
yeah, that was even worse, wasn't it? In the February 2021 exam, which was given online, there was open book provided for the essays. What did you do, or if anything, with open book for the essays?
So I kept my outlines nearby. I think probably maybe once I did kind of consulted to get a general rule out of it. But for the most part, I didn't really use them. I didn't use the open book at all. And I know it was, especially in the last year's one, that was a time trap in my view. Like the
Yeah.
time you spend looking would take away from your writing time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think it is a time trap. I think you can get sucked into that and suddenly you're looking at your books or your outlines or your notes and you've lost track of the time and you needed to keep writing. What adjustment did you make for the nature of the online exam this second time around? How did you prepare yourself to avoid the problems you had back in October?
So first things with once we got the samples, I made sure I practiced just the screen, the structure of the screen, question box, note to box, answer box, and just focus on that and trying to use that what I had rather than getting my frustrations up. And then more importantly, it was just the writing style, like I said, starting from the facts to come to your conclusion. I made a rule for myself, no matter what question in that 45 minutes, 5 minutes left, just start writing a conclusion. And luckily, I got to the point where I was able to get analysis in and everything else. So timing ended up working out. But I think it was just going in thinking, okay, keep your eye on the time and keep your eye on what's on the screen and focus that way.
What about the performance test? It certainly is difficult to do and different to do a performance test in an online format than with the actual documents in front of you. Can you talk a little bit about how you set that up?
So with the performance test, I actually used a note-taking section on the screen because I wrote my outline, at least for each question, not really a full-blown outline, but just notes on points that I wanted to hit. Because I wanted to make sure I had visually what I could see, what was concerned with the fact, especially having to, not necessarily the fact pattern, but say, for example, the sample, the references, reference laws and reference case laws and everything else. I was just trying to notate those things so I knew where I was going to point back to from each one for the MPTs.
And if you were to break out how long you spent in the actual drafting versus the preparation, can you remember how that broke?
Yeah, I know I spent 40 minutes 38 minutes writing and the remaining time in the earlier portion in preparation. I didn't spend that. I didn't give myself the full 45 minutes as recommended.
Okay, great. Now on the multi-state exam, taking that exam online, was that in any way different for you than in paper and pencil with a Scantron, or did it feel like pretty much the same thing?
The multi-state, I didn't have much of an issue there. It felt pretty much the same thing, even though it was online and everything on screen. But yeah.
And did you feel like you said you'd had pretty good multi-state scores before. Did you feel pretty prepared going in this time for the multi-state?
I did. Like I had done PhotoReading to supplement the substantive law in my head. I had done multiple, my user routine was a bit of reading, but mostly 50 practice questions a day per subject and just keep rotating 7 days a week. And also doing practice essays. But the multi-state, I think I practiced, I don't know how many hundred practice questions I did, but I did a lot of it. So I felt prepared, and I always did even for the last few ones as well.
The logistics of the online exam, obviously difficult with the screens, but did you like taking the test from home as compared to traveling and being in a testing center? Or
yeah, I would agree that at home was actually convenient because I work from home. I've been working from home for the last few years. So it was great, man. Where I live in Atlanta, the convention center is about an hour ride downtown, pass through the city and everything else. Doing it at home, I think the convenience of it worked better for me. Format issue aside.
Yeah. So you take the exam, and what's your sense when the test is over in February? You're done with the 2 days of testing. How's it feel to you?
Honestly, after the first day, I felt I was in best shape I've ever been in since I've taken the bar exam. And I remember telling my wife, I think I did, because I knew once I got over that hump of the writing, I finished each question. I never questioned my ability to write. It's just a matter of putting subject to give them a reason and not leaving points on the table, basically. So once I finished the essay, I was already comfortably prepared for the next day. I was actually feeling great after day one. And then day two, finishing the multi-state and not having to do AABBBCC at the end, finishing all the intuitive method you guys do, just going through and keep myself at the time. I finished that in time as well, actually a bit early. So by day two, I was ecstatic. I just had a gut feeling like this is it. There's no way that they can deny me because I didn't leave points on the table like I did the last time.
Yeah. And of course, Georgia is the last major state in the country to release bar results. That's got to be torture. You're watching everybody else get their results. Talk us through the day Georgia results came out. What was that like for you?
So that morning, I made sure I scheduled half a day. I think I had 2 meetings, 9 or 10 in the morning, and then the rest of the day, I had no meeting scheduled for work. And I figure it usually comes around lunchtime. So by 11, when I got the email, ran upstairs, grabbed my wife, and I was like, okay, you open it and let's do it. The first time I had her open the letter, and she opened the email, and the minute she screamed, I was like, I knew it. And it was celebration after that. Took the rest of the day off work.
Yeah, I like that. It's a celebration. It's got to be a great feeling for your family because they go through this process with you, don't they?
Yeah. I literally called my daughter who lived down in the city and my younger daughter who's home, and they were both tearing up because they know and they watched my frustrations, especially last time. It was the first time the first 2 times I went downtown. This time I'm actually at home. So they're seeing the stress and after each break and how you feel and everything else. So they cried and I told them I hope you learn something from my journey here in the sense of no matter how many times you get knocked down, you got to keep going. And it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. I often talk, particularly to parents of younger children, about how they're modeling for their kids a set of behaviors around high stakes tests and education and quitting and giving up and pursuing your dream. I think that for adult children to see their parents going and doing what you did, Prince, has got to be not only model, but it's also got to be inspiring to them.
Yeah, I believe it is. I believe it is. And they've told me that so much. I love my family. They know the frustrations for the last 20 years, some of the reasons why I never went back, work related, kids related and everything else. So I had 100% support across the board once I decided to, because I took a risk. I left the company, a good job that I was with in a quasi-legal role, and took that package and stepped away to go and study. They were with me from day one on that journey.
What a great role model that makes you for that taking the risk and stepping out. And I think particularly at a time when the voices that we need to have heard in the country and in the bar have to be more diverse. And certainly in Georgia, of all states in the last couple of years, the critical need to have people of color who are part of the bar and who are active in the bar, I think it's an extraordinary thing. And there aren't that many people that get into the bar. So it's a big deal. And you got to feel like you're pretty special to be.
I do. I am ecstatic. I actually feel great to be finally. I'm actually getting sworn in on Wednesday of this week. So looking forward to that.
What a moment. And your family will be there?
Yes. It is virtual, of course, but everybody will be virtually participating.
That's awesome. What advice would you give? I'm sure that there are going to be people watching our interview today who have taken and failed the exam multiple times, maybe have been away from the bar for years. What advice would you have for them?
Persistence. And ultimately, if the practice of law and being is the career path you want to go and doing the traditional practice and having the recognition of it, stick with it. It's focus on and try to find your weaknesses, especially for the multiple test takers. It took a couple of times to realize, okay, it's not too bad of an issue. Let me focus on, pay attention, use those failures as learning experiences to see how to strategize for the next time and just keep pushing.
I think that's great. I think that's great wisdom to offer people. Can I ask what made you choose Celebration Bar Review and what you would tell people about your experience?
It was, I think the videos you had on YouTube kind of talking about a different approach, because that's for me was what I've been doing IRAC for years and been doing the big bar courses for a year before and having 2 unsuccessful attempts. I just knew that for me in my focus area that I needed that a new writing method. I needed to jolt what I had been doing to hopefully get me going in the right direction. And that's what it was. It was the changing of that writing method that I could pinpoint it exactly. That's what it was.
Well, that's great. We're really proud of you. It is a terrific accomplishment in a crazy year, to be sure. And it's got to feel very special to you to be in this position. I'm so excited for you and getting sworn in and seeing where the next steps go. You're still a pretty young guy. So a lot of opportunity here for you to make a mark in the legal field in Georgia. I really appreciate you being with us today, Prince, and sharing your story. I know that you'll encourage a lot of people, a lot of folks that may be thinking, I just don't know if I can do it or not. But it can be done, can't it?
It absolutely can be done. And by all means, just put your head down and get it done. Focus.
That's great. Thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it and wish you all the best. Congratulations to you and to your family. And to our audience, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you're as excited and encouraged as I am by hearing